As avidya or ignorance comes the problem of false ego, asmita. Asmita is defined as identification of the self with the body-mind complex. This is called ego. So first you don't know who you are, and then you identify with that which you are not. Right? Because first there has to be ignorance of your own self for you to misidentify, isn't it? Otherwise it's not possible. You cannot identify as yourself and also simultaneously identify as Gandhi, for example. You have to first forget who you are, then you walk in the street and say, "Hi, I am Gandhi." Suppose you meet someone like that on the street. So you say, "I am Mahatma Gandhi." And it's not Halloween. It's just a normal day in the week. Then what will you say? What will you do? Probably get out of there as fast as possible, or else call the psych ward. Because they're identifying with something that they're not. And then you start to build a life on that false identity, around that false identity. In our tradition, an example is sometimes given. If the body is compared to a cage and the self is compared to a bird within the cage, then identifying with the cage, all your time is preoccupied with making the cage very nice, and the bird within the cage is neglected. Or maybe using another analogy, if you think yourself the vehicle and not the driver of the vehicle, then all your time is preoccupied with making the vehicle very nice. You clean it, you put gas in it, you get rims that cost $3,000. I'm saying that specifically. One friend bought some rims that cost $3,000, and his wife was furious. So like this, you spend so much energy fixing up the car because that you think that is who I am, but your actual self is neglected. So this is called as asmita, false ego, where you identify, you have a lack of awareness of who you actually are. This is avidya. And then you superimpose your identity onto a body-mind complex, and you begin to build your whole life around that body. So that is modern civilization, of course, is like this, where you build your whole existence around the body because of a lack of awareness of who we truly are. So this is called as asmita. It's a corollary of ignorance. So from that false identity comes raga, comes attachment, right? So for example, you are not attached to eating cat food. I always give this example. Do you like cat food? Anyone around here like cat food? Why you don't like cat food? Have you ever tried it? Really? Oh my God. You've tried cat food you don't like? Too salty. That was really unexpected. Why we don't like cat food? Okay, here's what I know no one has tried. Stool. You've tried the stool? Okay. Anyone here would like to try the stool? Why you don't like to try the stool? Because you have a human ego, a human false ego. But there's a self or a soul inside the body of a hog that when it sees stool, it becomes ecstatic. And especially if you go to India, and some of you will go to India, you can see if you go to Vrindavan also, they have so many hogs that just wander around. And I always say, maybe this is slightly inappropriate, but they like the stool that is fresh out of the oven. And you can see it all the time in Vrindavan. You can see fresh out of the oven. They go into like a frenzy and run towards the fresh stool because that soul or self and that body has that hog ego. And so they find that to be very attractive, whereas we find it to be repulsive. And if we were to go to the hog and offer him nice Divya's Kitchen lasagna, the hog would not be very satisfied. Say, hey, come, look. Yeah, what is that? What's behind? I have another interest because of the ego that is there. So according to your ego, you have different attachments and different aversions, right? So raga and dvesha, this is mentioned together. Our attachments and aversions are based on our self-notion, our self-conception, isn't it? So then you have some conception, I'm an artist. And then from that, you have certain attachments and aversions. Or you identify with your race, or you identify with your sexuality, or you identify with your gender. These are all very big things today. I think they call the term is identity politics now. And where everyone is building their identities around their egos. And then they have certain attachments and aversions that are related to that particular ego. And of course, as it would work out, those attachments and aversions are often in conflict with other people's or other entities' attachments and aversions. And of course, when that conflict happens, the most powerful of the two wins out. So this is also the result of ignorance, attachment, and aversions to things related to a false notion of self. And then from there, this is the fifth item here. This is called raga is one item, and then dvesha, repulsion or aversion, is another. The last one is abhinivesh. Abhinivesh means abhinivesh actually means absorption. So you become completely absorbed in a particular self-notion. But it generally refers to the fear of death. You become so attached to a particular way of being or identity that I've translated here in my little booklet here as tenacity. That even when something is not working for you, even though you can clearly see it's a cause of suffering, still you are unable to let it go. For example, give a simple example is the body. The body may be diseased and actually dying. But still you don't want to die. Even though it is disease, it is so, it's going to die also, but still you don't want to let it go. So this is called abhinivesh. You're so absorbed in that self-conception, you cannot let it go. Even if some disease comes in your toe, I always give this example. Some disease comes in your toe, and the doctor says you have to lose that toe. You would be in so much anxiety. Can you just try to think about losing, like, let's say, like your big toe on your left foot. Just thinking about it, my skin is like crawling, like, oh man, we've been together for a long time. How could I live without you? You feel that way because we've invested so much into that, even that toe, so much of our sense of self. Our sense of self is, linked to our toes. That's how strong the sense of identity is. It's linked to even our toes. But if we shall lose one toe, what to speak of the toe? If you lose the fingernail, or the toenail, you feel great anxiety. I had the experience when I first lost one of my, I forget which fingernail I lost. I smashed it on the door, and the nail was like, it's basically dead, but I was just like, didn't want it to fall off, I was like, no. And then finally got to the point where it was like falling off. And then I was so afraid is it gonna stay like that forever? And I was asking different devotee. This is when I was living in the monastery. Will my fingernail grow back? And they were all messing with me, and they could see I was in anxiety. They was like, no, that's it. And I was in great anxiety. Then I would go and meditate, and I was like, devotees think I'm crying because of the devotion, but I'm crying because of my fingernail. It's not coming back. Later when it came back, I felt great happiness. I offered many prayers to the Lord. for his kindness upon me. That is how deep the attachment goes. It goes to even that point, the fingernail also. This is called abhinivesh. And then there's certain egos also that we become attached to. For example, again, same example, race, sexuality, gender, these are popular things today, or certain religious identities that is also very popular, a certain political party that is also very prominent in the social ethos today. And you become so attached to that identity that even if it is causing you so much misery, just like you see, I have some friends who are really into conspiracy theories, like all sorts of conspiracy theories are there. Some of them are not maybe conspiracy theories, but some of them are like really far out stuff. And they're so attached to being like a conspiracy theorist, and they have so many ideas. So one friend, he is always not getting any sleep and total anxiety. So he is practically suffering. But still, even though it is not helping his life in any way, he's so attached to that identity, he cannot let it go. Similarly, you have so many sorts of attachments to ideas that cause you so much suffering, still you cannot let it go. Just like sometimes, suppose you do some program, 100 people glorify you, but one person offers a feedback. Not even a criticism, just a feedback. The whole next day, what's that guy's problem? I gave a super excellent, that shit, just envious, Not even able to, because you become so attached to your notions of things, your ideas of things, that you don't want to experience the death of that. In the yoga traditions, they often sometimes refer to this as ego death. So of course, in one sense, the deepest is our attachment to our gross physical body. But also the attachment more to the gross body is to our idea of self. And it's very deep. It's very hard to let go of. And even if it's causing you so much suffering, you'll not be able to let go. You don't want to experience that ego death. Like the physical death, the ego death is also very painful. I often have this experience. I have this black body, obviously, and I often have this experience with friends who share the same race that, you know, they may have spent so much time trying to build their confidence inside this particular body because of a perceived or factual sense of oppression or something like that. So they spend all this time trying to build like a sense of self-confidence in that body. And then they come to, you know, the Bhakti Center or spiritual knowledge and like, you're not your body. It doesn't even matter. And it's like you spent all this time trying to build that identity, and then you finally got to a place where you felt comfortable, and then you hear spiritual knowledge and it's like, anyway, you're not the body. So that's that, you know, it's over. And I've seen a lot of persons really have a hard time processing that. That is called abhinivesh. That is called abhinivesh, where you don't want to experience that ego death. There's like a letting go of that. Like, yeah, at a certain point in conventional life that had so much meaning, but now it's time to move to a level of spirituality where I'm really identifying with my true self. But tenacity of that conception, it stays. And it's so much so that if someone calls you like a bad name, you know, you get very depressed about it or you become infuriated. That is called abhinivesh. So these five together are the root problems of existence. People are looking at the enemy. Sometimes they think Donald Trump is the enemy. They think Russia is the enemy. They're from Russia only. Yes, they think like this, or this one is the enemy, that one is the enemy. The leftists, they are the enemy. The far right, they are the enemy. No, ignorance is the enemy. And all the souls in this world are suffering from ignorance, more or less. It manifests differently because of the karmic situations. We'll get into this more when we get more into the Bhagavad Gita's message. But all souls in this world actually are suffering from the same disease only. It only looks different because of the karmic arrangements of the cells in these different bodies. For example, I see a lot of people, and I'm using these examples because they're just so prominent in our social ethos today. But you see so many people really freaking out about Donald Trump. So I asked many of my friends, suppose you had the same amount of power he had. You know, I know you think you're a good person now. And I don't doubt that you are. But suppose that you had the same amount of power and influence that he had. Do you think you would do better than him? Now, it's easy to think that we would because we don't have that sort of power. But as we hear, and as we may have even had some slight experience, power, the nature of power is that it corrupts. That's just how it is. So what makes us so sure that we would fare so much better? In other words, if we're suffering from the same disease, ignorance, and we have not actually done the work to come out of that problem, then what makes us think we would do so much better if given a particular facility informed by our ignorance? Right? I always see this with a lot of friends when they broke. Yeah, when I get money, I'm going to give so much donation to charity. And I'm going to give to the temple, and I'm going to give to this organization, that organization. I see this all. I've seen this at least with 3 or 4 of my friends. And they get some really lucrative paying job, and you know, I'll talk to them 6 months later. So, you know, what's going on with the donation game? How's that charity game working out? And they haven't given nothing to anyone. And how come you have not given anything? All because, you know, so many things I have to do. I know with one friend, he literally spent like $3,000 on video games. And I was like, wow, sounds really important. Because you don't have that money in your hand, you don't know how it transforms you. I remember when I was living in the monastery, I've always had this thing where I've been like, kind of like a mentor for a lot of young men. So one young man I was mentoring at the time, he was very inspired by me. I dropped him off at a bus station, and he asked me to drop him off at a bank. So it was just one on the way to the bus station. So he came out and he gave me like a wad of money like this. I didn't know he was going to do that. He said, Jai, I want to give this to you as a donation. So I just grabbed it and put it in the car because I was a monk, so I had to look detached, right? Oh, okay. But I did happen to, if I did it in slow motion, it was like 20s. So it's like this stack of 20s. And of course, I just put it in the car and I just, I sent them off. Then when I got back in the car to drive back to the temple, my mind was like, Jai, count it. Just count it. I was like practically shivering, I was like, don't look at it. Then we would stop at like the red lights, and then it's like, come on, just real quick. Luckily, when I got to the monastery, the director of the monastery, he was just there outside, so I immediately just grabbed it and gave it to him. And when I gave it to him, I was like, it took like a lot of mental power to not look at it, not to count, and then start calculating what I could do with this money. I did want that new MP3 player, and then kind of use a new computer. Nothing about giving in charity or anything like that, because that's the nature of power. Or the nature, and then someone who's wielding power informed by ignorance, what it will do to a person. So if someone has not done the hard work to overcome this problem of ignorance and its corollaries, such as ego and attachment, aversion, and abhinivesha, absorption, then what makes them so confident that they would fare better than Trump in that same situation informed by ignorance? So the Bhagavad Gita wants to address this problem. That unless you are serious about addressing the problem of ignorance and its corollaries, and again, if we talk about any one of these topics, we're talking about all of them. If we say attachment, we mean ignorance, ego. If we say tenacity, we mean ignorance, ego, attachment, aversion. If we say aversion, we mean attachment, ego. They're all together, really. Ignorance is considered the root of them all. So if we've not done the hard work to overcome ignorance, then our position is the same as anyone else in this world, actually. We're as equally capable of evil as we are capable of good when you're directed by ignorance. So right now you may be in a good place because of the movements of nature, but if you don't conquer ignorance, you can just as easily be in a bad place. And I think humanity has more than taught us that lesson. So this is the root problem that of the existence as viewed by the Vedanta tradition in general, and the Gita also specifically. And what we'll hear about in the future is how, what we'll hear about in the rest of chapter 1, which we'll start on Wednesday, are the characters of Dhritarashtra, Duryodhana, and Arjuna, and how they kind of are the archetypes of ignorance in this first chapter. We're going to see how ignorance plays itself out in these different characters. And then Krishna, in the beginning of chapter 2, will begin to give his instruction by which this ignorance problem can be solved. So, in short, ignorance is the enemy. There is no enemy. There is no greater enemy than this enemy of ignorance. So I'm going to stop there. It's half hour, so I'm going to leave it open for questions or comments or a little discussion. I like to end at 7:45 sharp if possible, so I'm giving myself enough time. If anyone wants to ask anything, participate. Is everything clear? Crystal clear? Yeah, Mr. Ian. Karmic arrangements, okay. So we'll learn about this later, but basically the living entity, the souls or cells or living entities, they're trapped in these bodies. These different bodies are there. So how do I have this body and you have that body? It was not that I tried to get this body and you tried to get that body. Of course, this is a popular idea also. You can choose your body. But this is very easily defeated by saying who would choose a hideous body or a stool-eating body and so on. So we have these different bodies. How did we come to get these different types of bodies? So according to yoga tradition and also Vedanta tradition, which we're representing specifically, then souls are doing activities in previous lives with their bodies. And those previous activities afford them a certain life experience, a certain birth, and a certain lifespan. And this is called karma. So you get a certain type of birth or body, you get a certain type of lifespan, and a certain type of life experience. So the type of body you have, even the type of psychology that you have, which you think is yourself, these are all due to karma, basically. So sometimes this question is asked, why do good, I always say it like this for some reason, why do good things happen to bad people? It's like an envious way of asking that. I always think of it like that. Maybe it's just like a Freudian slip or something. Why do good things happen to bad people? Like a Freudian slip. Or usually it's asked in the other way that doesn't sound as envious. Why do bad things happen to good people? So the way the Vedanta tradition answers this is karma. Purusha pakriti stohi bhunkte pakriti janguna karanam guna sangasya sarasa yoni jamasu. Krishna will say this later in Gita, that the Purusha, the soul, pakriti stohi, he is standing in this material nature. And it's specifically nature. The soul is different from nature. We'll come to learn this later. And he is standing in nature. What is he trying to do by standing in nature? Bhunkte. He is trying to enjoy this nature. Yes? You're trying to enjoy? Trying to enjoy? Trying to enjoy? Everyone trying to enjoy? How's it working out? Not very good. Bhunkte. So the jivas, the soul is standing in nature, trying to enjoy. And what is he trying to enjoy? Pakriti janguna. The products of nature, such as this body, such as the mind. Karanam guna sangasya, due to its association with nature in this way, sarasa yoni jamasu, the self is meeting with good and evil in different species of life, birth after birth after birth after birth after birth. So by a karmic arrangement, someone becomes a trump. And by a karmic arrangement, someone becomes a pauper in the street. So these are representative of previous life activities and the fruits that come about. So we'll kind of get to this more, but the world is a cause and effect world. So when you look at the world, you see that there are effects, and basically by studying the effects, you can come to make out what is the cause. And if you study that cause a little bit deeper, you start to realize that that's also an effect of an even remote cause. And if you study that remote cause, then you come to find out it's an effect of an even remote cause. So that you live in a cause and effect world. So every action, the word karma means action. So with the action, there is an agent of the action called karta, the agent of the action, and then there's the fruit of the action called karmapala. Now in one day, you're doing so many activities. So all those fruits are stacking up. You'll not be able to get all the fruits in one lifetime. And so you have to get another body to enjoy those fruits. Now if you have vicious actions, then you get to taste some bitter fruits. And if you have very virtuous actions, then you get to taste sweet fruits. But we'll come and learn from Gita, both the bitter and the sweet fruits are to be rejected. And the real intelligent person tries to get out of this nature altogether and into an environment that more matches his own nature, his own spiritual nature. So that's, yes.
So you're not saying you're denying, or are you denying nature?
Are you denying nature?
No, your nature.
Am I denying my nature?
Yes.
No, the soul is different from nature. So he has to learn how to use that nature for transcendence. The example that is often given by Prabhupada is that one should learn how to remove a thorn with a thorn. So if you have one thorn in your finger, like a splinter, then you take another thorn and then you take out that one thorn and then you throw both of them out. So the body is in fact an imposition on the soul. Asana piklesha da asadeha. It means the body is a source of misery. It is a giver of misery. But it can be used in order to attain the transcendence. This is the great mystery of spiritual life. So one has to identify what nature they have and they can use that nature to transcend. That is intelligent. So now that, again, you come to terms with your nature, that is okay. But now you should use it to go for the spiritual life, to be situated in your actual nature. So this is also another point. If you have this Bhagavad Gita as it is, you can see in chapter 2, verse 31, this word is used, swadharma. So there are the commentaries. So there's two types of swadharma. Swadharma means one's own nature. That is the meaning of swadharma. So there's the swadharma of the actual self, and there's the swadharma of the body. So the Gita is promoting that you come fixing your swadharma, the swadharma of the self. In order to do that effectively, you should understand, to whatever degree you can, the swadharma of the body, so that you can use that swadharma of the body to be situated in your swadharma as a spiritual entity. So nature is not denied in Vedanta, at least in devotional Vedanta, but there has to be proper perspective of it. Otherwise you get lost in nature, as one is lost in a forest. Yes.
We're using the word nature synonymously with like the material world.
Yes, the material world. And sometimes the word nature here, and specifically in his question, your mentality, like your psychology, a certain nature, how you think of yourself. This is also, we sometimes refer to this as your nature. Sometimes they use this rubric, psychophysical nature. So you have your body, and then you have your psychology. So that together is your nature. But these are products of the more fundamental stuff of the material world. So yeah, nature. English, you have to use so many words to describe one word. In Sanskrit, you have to use so many words to clarify. Yes. You want to ask something?
Is attachment and abhinivesh the same thing? Because it seems that you cannot have absorption unless you have attachment.
Yes, that's actually a good question. Is attachment and abhinivesh the same thing? They're close. The abhinivesh again means absorption, so it's really describing a sort of degree of attachment. For example, you may have attachment to ice cream, but if you don't, let's say chocolate ice cream you really like, but if you don't, blueberry, they have blueberry ice cream? Okay, so blueberry ice cream. Okay, so just for that clarification. So you're attached to blueberry ice cream, but if you don't get the blueberry ice cream, then it is okay. It is not. Abhinivesh means you have some self-notion that's so deep that if you don't get it, you can't practically function without satisfying that self-notion, really meaning this body. So if you don't, if you have to give up blueberry ice cream, it is okay. But if you have to give up this body, it is not okay. Huh? You don't overthink it. If someone came in here with a gun, say, I'll shoot you, then you'll be nervous. Isn't it? So don't overthink it, because sometimes with spiritual things, we overthink things that are very simple. Well, actually, it'd be okay if you shot me, because then I can chant Hare Krishna. And nah, if someone comes in here with a gun, say, I'll shoot you, you'll be nervous. You probably start crying. Don't shoot me, don't shoot me, because you are attached to this body. This is abhinivesh, so it is not okay. If you have to give up blueberry ice cream, no problem. But if you have to give up this body, you do not want to at any cost. So this is abhinivesh. It's like a degree of attachment.
So it seems like abhinivesh is applicable more to our bodily conception and attachment to like different type of
Things, yes. Yeah, it is more fixed in the body. And the body also means the subtle body. So that's why I was mentioning different self-conceptions or ideas people attach themselves to. Yes. Anything else? Any further? Okay, so what is the problem? Very good. Very good. Who here is ignorant? Jai, very inspiring class. Yeah, you go to your friends, like, I went to a Bhagavad Gita class. Well, what did you learn there? I learned I'm ignorant. So I learned you ignorant too. Jai, very good class. If you're leaving with that point, then you've learned properly today. And this is a point that is often not considered seriously enough. Like, no one wakes up in the morning thinking, I'm ignorant. You don't walk away or function in the world thinking like that, but this is actually the fact. It doesn't have to be the fact, but it is the reality. So,
Action item.
The action item?
Wake up in the morning.
No. Well, if you can contemplate that, you definitely develop the humility required to receive knowledge. So Krishna, we'll see later on in Gita, chapter 13, verse 8, when he describes 20 items of knowledge. And the first one he mentions is amanitvam. And amanitvam means humility. So that is required for learning. I always give this simple analogy. If you want to transform water from one cup to another, how do you do it? And one cup has to come low, isn't it? You cannot go like this. I guess you could try that also, but that is very impractical. If you want to make it easy, you just bring one cup low, and then you pour it. So similarly for receiving knowledge, you have to come low. Huh? But many times, because especially in the age of Google Acharya, the guru of the Google, Acharya means spiritual preceptor. So the Google Acharya. Everyone, as soon as you don't know something, you say, oh, just Google it. So you don't have to actually perform that function of going kind of low before a teacher and presenting questions and trying to learn from them. So this is a very big problem in the process of learning today. No one wants to go low. But if you can reflect that I'm an ignorant person, then you can get some inspiration too. Amaniton, to become a little humble by that. And then, yes, I have to learn from a proper teacher. Otherwise, you're not take it seriously to learn. Then you say, I'll just Google it or something. Just like I was in school, I never would listen to the teacher. I would just get the Cliff Notes. You know, they had the Cliff Notes or Spark Notes, Spark Notes. And then like this is the culture. So yeah, that's the action item. You can reflect on your ignorance. Or reflect, I would say rather you can reflect on the reason to be humble and learn Bhagavad Gita. So actually my class today was to encourage you to come back for the rest of the classes. So action item, come to class on Wednesday, and then the Monday and Wednesday after that, and then the Monday and Wednesday after that, and continue to come. The class will still be here as far as I understand. We're going to have to work out the microphone situation so that it only comes to the front of the room. I guess their speakers go to the back. But that was already arranged. Yeah, it will take place there. The other program is in the back, and it was worked out before. Probably. I did record this class, and I will be recording the classes. In the future classes, I'll have them, I'm going to live stream them from YouTube. So I'll open a YouTube channel today, just for these classes for starting it, and then I'll leave them on there. I'll still see if I want to make it like private, where only you have to like message me to get them or something. I'm trying to see how magnanimous I'm going to be, but.
Taking emails to get the notes. You said some people had notes in the session today.
Yeah.
Is there a way you plan to send those out, or you're still figuring it out?
Okay. I don't know if there's a paper here. We could take emails. There's a Sacred Dialogues email thingy list, email list. So I won't be sending anything from the email list, but I do have a soft copy of the outlines for the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, which is what I'll be reading from for every subsequent class. We'll have a few hard copies here. I suggested 6 because I didn't think there would be more than 6 people participating, but we'll have a few hard copies here. Otherwise, if you would like a soft copy, which you could look over after the class and reflect further, then you can just, I guess you can leave your email with me, and then I can just add you to the list, and I'll just send you the PDF. Don't worry, I'm not going to be sending out tons and tons of emails from that list, but I can send you the soft copy. Hariyam Tat Sat. Thanks a lot for participating. Hare Krishna. Hare. I hope to see at least some of you again on Wednesday. That's the action item. Hare Krishna. No. That's not good. All right. Y'all. Got the online group here. Later online. Hare. Waiting for no, today I had to wait 24 hours for the YouTube, so I just did it.
two were like last night, like before this, and the third night is still like up in the air. Jaya said he might take charge of it. Let's see how. Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, we live here on the sixth floor, but he was just saying we're gonna go up to the 37. Which is nice though, it's great. Every 3 months. There's one they take away from me.
The next class will have a questionnaire. So I'll probably stop and start between and go back to the universe.
Your class was making me so tempted. Like, I was like, I just want to see what
Well, it definitely needs to be good for you too, for sure. But yeah, I'll do the questionnaire and click on the tours. That way I can do a little more ordinary. And I think after we'll start doing it.
and you'll record.
No, I'll record it. We'll use it as an English translation, but we're not gonna give any commentaries. We're just gonna look at the most of
Like one person